Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Alex Schultz of Censuro Global, and I'm very happy to be joined today by my colleague Sam Cairns. And
Hi, everyone.
hi Sam, and we're here
Hi.
to we're here to talk about the government's newly launched and long-awaited immigration white paper. Now, we had previously intended that this session would be a preview of what would be in the white paper, because we, like I think most of the media, from what I could tell, had anticipated that the document would be released at some point later in the week, but the government have got there before us, and I'm sure some of you will have heard the Prime Minister giving his press conference earlier this morning to launch the paper. Instead of a preview, we are going to be offering a bit of a flash analysis of the white paper, which we have both spent the morning working our way through. And we're going to be looking at it specifically through the lens of how it will impact private sector employers in particular. And Sam, so what do this is obviously just a white paper at present and not settled policy.
That's, yeah, that's correct, Alex. I mean, and that's just like a key point to sort of drill in, I guess, at the beginning of this sort of briefing, is that the white paper is only a white paper. It is just suggestions that the government are looking to make. They haven't confirmed yet that this will be drafted into law. It is quite possible that most of the points that they've raised in this paper will be drafted into law and will become official legislation potentially later in the year. But at present, they haven't sort of confirmed any specific dates on when that handover will take place, nor will all of these policies potentially be in that legislation. It is just a white paper. There is potential for change. So just keep that in mind when we sort of go through this briefing.
It's
Back
yes,
to you, Alex.
it's sure. Thank you so much, Sam. That's a very important point to clarify, that this is at present an indicative document rather than something set in stone. But it still marks a pretty significant step change in the national approach to immigration policy, and certainly a major departure from that seen in the last few years. And so let's start with a bit of a rundown of the key provisions that employers ought to be aware of from the new document. So the headline change is that the eligibility threshold for the skilled worker visa, which is the cornerstone visa route for the UK migration system as a whole, the eligibility criteria is to be raised to an RQF level 6. So that equates to a bachelor's degree. So that means that, in effect, you can only hire from overseas using the skilled worker visa for graduate level roles. Now, this was raised from the previous threshold of A-level equivalence. And as per the white paper, limiting this route in this way will remove around 180 occupations from the eligible occupation list for the skilled worker visa. Now, there will be some provisions made for lower skilled jobs below the RQF level 6 benchmark. They will only qualify for short-term visas in areas that have proven evidence-based shortages as defined by the Migration Advisory Committee. And that will only be the case if employers commit to training UK staff and I believe submitting proof that they have a workforce plan in place to do so. It's hinted at that dependents will be restricted in that situation, and it's ambiguous at present as to whether indefinite leave to remain will be eligible in this case. There will also be rises in the salary thresholds for all the visa routes, including the skilled worker visa in particular, and that threshold will actually be higher still in the case that visa holders wish to bring dependents. However, on the other side of the ledger, there are increases in the visa routes available for those with talents deemed to be kind of exceptional or outstanding. So we're going to see a large increase in access to the high potential individual visa, the global talent visa, the UK expansion worker visa, and the innovator founder visa. And I think Sam will be able to speak in greater depth about that a little bit later on. But Sam, what are the other headline takeaways from this white paper?
Yeah, thank you, Alex, for that sort of overview, particularly of the skilled worker sort of provisions that are coming in. One thing that I'm sure none of us will be happy with is the immigration skills charge will unfortunately rise. So this has been confirmed that it's going to be rising by 32%. And this will affect both large sponsors and small sponsors. As we know, there is a sort of fee differential between whether you're a large or a small sponsor, but both fees will be going up by a 32% raise. Now, again, hasn't been confirmed when this will be implemented. But to be honest, I think other than one of the later ones. But again, we'll wait and see what the Home Office confirm regarding that. In addition, I'm sure you've all seen, but the Home Office are closing the health and care worker visa route to overseas applications. So last year, they removed the ability for dependents to apply for new applicants under this route. They are now removing the ability for main applicants to apply under this route from overseas. They have, however, confirmed that anyone within the UK already holding a health and care worker visa can continue to extend that visa. In addition to that, anyone who was with a care provider that had lost their sponsor license can continue to apply for a health and care worker visa from within the UK for an existing care worker sponsor. They have, however, stated that this will only be in place until 2028, when the entire route will be removed for good. In addition, graduate visas will face tighter restrictions across the board. So obviously individuals who are students or who complete their course, they can apply for the post-study work visa known as the graduate visa. At present, they can apply for this and it will be valid for up to 2 years. The Home Office have now stated that this will be reduced down to 18 months. One thing that we were potentially anticipating, and I think a lot of people were, was that there would be a minimum salary requirement applied to this route. However, the white paper does not make any indication to this. All it seems to have done is reduce the amount of time you can be on a graduate visa. They have also raised English language requirements across the board. So just a brief overview of this. For new skilled worker applicants, they will have to meet the B2 level on the CEFR scale. So currently you have to meet the B1 level. You will now have to meet the B2 level. The ways you can meet this still remain the same. So if you have a degree fully taught in English at the B2 level, that will be fine. An English language test, of course, and also if you have a UK taught degree. Now, in addition to that, a new phenomenon that we've now seen the Home Office implement is that they are requiring dependents to now attain English language. So these will be adult dependents, they won't be child dependents. I think that would be a little bit unfair, but they have implemented it for adult dependents, or they are going to. And these adult dependents, the indication is that they will have to meet the A1 level on the CEFR scale in order to meet the requirements to apply as a dependent of a skilled worker visa holder. English language is also being raised for settlement applications, so anyone applying for indefinite leave to remain. The indication at present is that this will be raised to B2 on the CEFR scale. But again, we will have to wait for further sort of indication from the Home Office on when and whether this will be implemented. They have also raised criteria, or they're going to raise criteria for indefinite leave to remain applications and citizenship applications. So as you may have read, indefinite leave to remain, the eligibility for that is being made for 10 years rather than 5 years. However, there is no indication as to whether that will affect individuals already on an ILR eligible route, or whether it will only affect new applications made after the implementation of the law. We will have to wait for confirmation on that, just so you're aware. They have, however, made some provisions, some stipulations under that for individuals who show significant progression throughout their time on a skilled worker permission. Maybe that will be reduced from 10 years. But again, the specifics of that haven't been outlined. We'll have to wait for further clarification before we can advise in greater depth on that. They've also stated about citizenship that this will be made, the requirement for this will be made longer. Again, no specifics have been released regarding how long this may be increased by. We will have to wait again for further sort of stipulations on how that will be implemented. Some good news now. So we've got the information about biometric information. Obviously, we're all well aware that if you are a sort of holder of a European passport, you can pretty much do everything online with regards to a skilled worker visa application, submit your biometrics online, get your e-visa issued online. This is now partially being expanded to the rest of the world. So whilst an applicant from another country wouldn't be able to submit their biometrics online as of yet, they would, however, be issued with an e-visa when they attain their visa status. So instead of you having to return to the visa application center to collect your passport, which is normally issued with a sort of 90-day entry stamp, you will now be issued with an electronic visa copy. Obviously, this will streamline things across the board, make things a lot easier, a lot quicker. But the one thing we're not and haven't been clarified on yet is regarding the sort of period of entry that you can enter the UK. Obviously, with the visa stamp, individuals would be issued. It would normally be a 90-day visa entry stamp, giving you that one-time permission to enter the UK before your e-visa was created and sort of issued. However, it's unclear at the moment as to whether this will still be applicable if an individual is issued that electronic visa. So we'll have to keep you updated on that when we get further clarifications from the Home Office. Further things that have been indicated in this white paper are that some refugees will now be granted the right to work via the skilled worker visa permission. So this will apply to individuals identified who are currently outside of the UK, maybe in a sort of UN identified refugee camp, for example, who have the skills that could be applicable for an RQF level 6 role under the skilled worker occupation list. They may be issued with a skilled worker visa now, or be eligible to apply for one from outside the UK. But this number has been indicated that it will be limited. It sort of will be capped to a certain extent. The exact number we are not aware of at the moment. And finally, just a little point here about the non-visa and visa national lists. So, as I'm sure you're all aware, last year, Colombian nationals were taken off the non-visa national list. Earlier this year, we had Trinidadian nationals taken off as well. This is the justification for this from the Home Office, is that they saw an uptick in individuals from these countries applying for asylum in the UK who had a visa or didn't have a visa in the case of them entering visa-free. This will continue to be expanded and will continue to be looked at. So as a business, you just need to make sure you're on top of these lists. I know a lot of people bring in individuals for business trips, for sort of other activities linked to the visa permitted activities list, manufacturing, intra-company training. This can obviously cause issues when those nationalities are taken off the list. So it's just something for you to be aware of. Alex, I'll pass back to you for some further thoughts.
Sure. Well, thank you so much, Sam, for that very comprehensive overview of some of the key provisions made in the white paper. So I now just want to kind of draw people's attention to some of the through lines observable in the kind of in the document as a whole, because obviously there's a massive information within this very large, very compendious document. And so if we were to make sense of this and advise people on what key lessons they should take in aggregate from it all, the first would be, I think, that costs are rising. The cost of employing somebody from overseas in the UK is going to rise. Now, we can pinpoint one of those rises quite precisely because it's been laid out in the white paper, and that's the rise in the immigration skills charge, which the government have said that they are raising in line with inflation by 32%. Now, that suggests that it's not been raised for quite some time, and so then they're doing it all at once to make up the ground. So that's going to be quite a hefty one-off increase, but also salary thresholds for the skilled worker visa and probably other visa forms are going to also go up. Now, they haven't specified by how much, so that's something that we will be monitoring closely and we'll keep everybody abreast of as and when we have more information. And of course, the white paper also contains a bit of a stinger in that skilled worker visa applicants wishing to bring dependents with them will see a salary threshold yet higher. So I think that the takeaway is that costs are going to continue to rise even after a period where they've risen quite considerably. And in terms of how employers should think about their hiring strategy, I think the government are very clearly signaling that skill levels, the skill level of an applicant, of a candidate from overseas, is a much more important consideration than their immediate availability and ability to fill a particular job. So the system will now force employers, it will render them unable to hire workers who don't have a certain level of skills needed that could contribute to an organization's, let's say, kind of higher, less operational and more strategic functions. And so instead, your overseas hiring strategy is always going to have to prioritize applicants with specialized skill sets who can do higher value work. So there's a bit of a stick approach here in raising the salary thresholds. Now, there's also a bit of a carrot approach as well, in that the white paper is proposing that the wait time before one is eligible to claim indefinite leave to remain can actually be brought down for those visa holders who are deemed to be making contributions to the economy and to British society, often observable through their, their tax contributions perhaps, or, the nature of the work they're doing. So this may actually provide a bit of an incentive for companies to cultivate their overseas graduate level hires as best they can, so that they can sort of ease their path a little to towards settlement. And this goes along with some of the inducements I think the government seems to be making in the white paper to kind of broaden the scope of skilled talent hiring beyond the skilled worker visa itself. And Sam, you can speak a little bit more about that, I think.
Yeah, thank you, Alex. Just to sort of, I know we talked about it very briefly earlier, but there are sort of four current immigration routes which the Home Office seem to have picked up on in this white paper, in that they're looking to encourage more utilization of. They are the Global Talent Visa, the Innovator Founder Visa, High Potential Individual Visa, and also the UK Expansion Worker Visa under the Global Business Mobility Stipulation. Now, in the white paper, the Home Office, sort of just to pick up on the global talent point, it's clear that the Home Office are looking to try and build this idea and system of a very highly qualified, high talent system. So to desensitize, I guess, what you'd call lower qualified occupation codes that are currently in the skilled worker route, and incentivize more individuals to come under those highly qualified, high talent routes, particularly the global talent visa. So just to pick up on that, what the Home Office have said about the global talent is that they're looking to make it simpler and easier for top scientific and design talent to use the global talent visa. The specifics on that haven't been confirmed yet, but it's likely that when and if implemented, the guidance will change to accommodate what the Home Office have said in the white paper. In addition to that, as part of that, the Home Office are looking to increase places to their scheme for research interns, including in particular those working in the field of artificial intelligence. I'm sure we're all well aware of AI. It's in the news all the time. The Home Office have picked up on that. They note that the way to build this high-tech economy that they're looking for is to introduce and encompass that AI technology. That's where the global talent visa will become fundamental, getting those high-tech AI engineers, AI design engineers across to the UK, wherever they may be from. So just sort of looking at that in a bit more detail, it's quite an underused route. There are circa 5,000 people every year, sometimes less, sometimes a bit more, who attain the global talent visa. When you compare that to a total number of close to 1 million people who could get a UK visa, it's a small amount. And the Home Office clearly want to increase utilisation of that. They haven't given us a specific number of how many they're looking for, or that, and most importantly, they haven't put a cap on it. So it's clear that that will be a route used also by businesses in the future to retain that talent. And the good thing about the global talent is that whilst nominally you would need to wait 5 years for settlement eligibility, under some circumstances, this can be reduced down to 3 years. They haven't made any reference to that changing on the white paper. So from our understanding, that still remains the same. In addition to that, there is also the Innovator Founder Visa. Again, it is a sort of very solid visa route, but it is quite significantly underused at the moment. People who would be eligible for an Innovator Founder normally opt for the global talent, right? Because with the Innovator Founder, you have to have those check-ins every year, those regular check-ins. You can avoid that by going to global talent. Most people normally do. So the Home Office, they've stated in the white paper that they're looking to review the Innovator Founder Visa to ensure that it supports entrepreneurial talent currently studying at UK universities to move into the visa so they can build their business and career in the UK. So it's quite interesting they've made that stipulation about trying to sort of retain that talent who are already here in UK universities. So those international students who may be eligible to switch into that visa, start a business in the UK, create that sort of foundation whilst here. Good thing about Innovator Founder as well, ILR eligibility can be after 3 years. So haven't made any reference to that on the white paper to change. So could be another route that individuals use to try and fast track their way to permanent residency in the UK. The high potential individual visa. So this again is a visa can be used by individuals who attended a certain set of universities around the world. This university set, of course, changes every year. And we note from the white paper that it will still be subject to change. But the Home Office are doubling the number of universities that are on this list. So it will go to, we're not entirely sure what the figure will be, but they have indicated that this will pretty much double the number of universities that are eligible for this visa. Theoretically, we could say that the number of people on this route may double. Obviously, it may not. People are within their own right to choose this visa or not, but it is clear that the Home Office are trying to encourage greater utilisation of these higher talent routes, such as the HPI. To finish this off, we've got the UK Expansion Worker Visa. So again, individuals on this visa, business looking to set up in the UK. Currently, they can only bring 5 people over to the UK on this visa, now being expanded to 10, which gives these businesses greater scope and eligibility to sort of push that business foundation in the UK, get to that area where you can start applying for skilled worker permission. Alex, I'll pass it back to you.
Yes, thank you, Sam. So I suppose that one thing we can sort of take from this is that there is now a greater onus being placed on employers to be aware of more routes that are available to them than they might have been previously, because as Professor Brian Bell, the chairman of the Migration Advisory Committee, told our workshop session that we hosted him at a few months ago, these routes that you are speaking of are actually very, very underutilized. So I think that there are certain, even amidst the restrictions that are being placed in other parts of the white paper, there are some angels in the details here for companies looking to bring elite talent into the UK. But I also think that it speaks of, I think the government are trying to sort of inspire a new mindset in employers, as far as I can tell. They're trying to get employers to view themselves, this is my read at least, to view themselves as sort of contributors to a national strategic story. You know, this is all going hand in hand with an industrial strategy, which we've been hearing a lot about the last few months, but which they intend to kind of launch with yet another white paper sometime in the summer. So there is a shift towards a strategic economic framework that employers must kind of situate themselves within. And we see this very tangibly in the fact that employers will have to, in order to access the time limited kind of shortage list, they will have to submit their own workforce strategy for how they are going to upskill domestic British talent. And so this means that the right to employ from overseas will be a right that comes with certain obligations and responsibilities that perhaps were always there originally, but certainly far less pronounced in how people understood their ability to navigate the visa system. And I think that those responsibilities are also going to mean there's going to be a lot more of a focus on compliance. Now, in the white paper, there's quite a lot of discussion of the e-visa system. Now, we are shifting as a country away from any kind of physical documentation to prove your immigration status towards a automated, self-updating kind of digital identification system now through the e-visa. Now, that means that the authorities will be able to know pretty much instantly if any individuals are overstaying or violating the terms of their visas. That information will be a lot more readily available to the Home Office. And if it is found that that is the case, then there may be some quite worrisome non-compliance penalties for those individuals' employers. Sam, would you agree with that kind of analysis of the new compliance risks that have come from the border digitalization?
Yeah, no, I think it's something definitely to be sort of very, very aware of. I mean, as we know and probably seen in the news, like Alex said, the Home Office have been beefing up compliance checks. We know there's a greater sort of requirement now when even submitting defined certificate of sponsorship applications, you know, there are more requests coming in across the board for additional documentation, for interviews for individuals, right? The Home Office are cracking down on businesses not deemed compliant or deemed uncompliant, with their sort of regulations. So it is something definitely to keep track of. You know, this increased scrutiny on compliance. You know, I'm sure we'll get greater sort of details about how the specifics of this will be carried out, but we know that the Home Office are taking a far stricter line on compliance checks across the board. So, you know, something that you, your employees, you know, your employer, etc., need to be well aware of, to make sure that with this new system coming in, these new rules coming in, you are fully compliant to avoid those compliance penalties, which in some cases can lead to the revocation of a sponsor license, which is detrimental in a very significant way to most businesses.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, that's an incredibly detrimental thing to happen to any business, and it can have some pretty long-run financial harms. So I think that there's still a lot. There's still a lot that will be unanswered for now until the actual policies come before Parliament. Nonetheless, I think that this white paper, from our initial reaction to it, certainly does mark a pretty momentous sea change in how the UK approaches its immigration policy. It marks a shift from a system whereby low-skilled hiring is reasonably easy to one where it's actually very difficult, and employers are burdened with some new compliance obligations and hard costs. Now, we will be returning to provide a more comprehensive analysis of the white paper later this week, to which everybody who is currently registered to this session will be auto-registered. So there's nothing that anybody else has to do to sign up for that. You will receive a link to watch that, and we hope you do. So I think for now we're going to say our goodbyes, but thank you so much to everybody for joining us for this session, and we hope that it's given you a little bit of clarity about what is a rather intimidating policy prospectus. So I think from me and Sam for now, goodbye, and we will see you later this week for the full in-depth analysis where we shall be answering some more questions. Thank you very much.